on the right path? How do you know the decisions that you're making are in your best interest? This is a huge theme in my conversation with Millie Gormely. So, Millie is a certified financial planner working virtually with independent women in Ontario. She's been around the block a few times. She loves music, wine, cats, and salty snacks. In this conversation, you're going to hear the multiple pivot points in Millie's career and how they brought them to where she is today. In these pivot points, I mean, some of these situations are life threatening, toxic. It's an exploration of self care and mental health. And sometimes when you look back on the journey that brought you here, that's when you realize that those situations that in the moment felt so terrible and pressure filled and just weighing down on your heart and your soul, those situations gave you the lessons that are truly pivotal. Millie Gormley, thank you so much for joining me today. I love your story so much because I think some people have this like romanticized vision of what it's like to go into business for yourself. And you almost feel like, these ideas just come to you like they're clouds floating from the heavens and just everything is just this effortless exploration. But your pivots are hard turns.
Yeah, I've manifested some fun stuff for myself over the years, that's for sure.
You did, but I love those expressions too, right? A diamond is grown under pressure, right? Just think the growth happens in the dark. So let's maybe start from the end. How are you and how is your business today?
I'm good. So I am a certified financial planner. I am working with some really great clients. I am looking to add more clients to my business all the time. And I'm in a place where I'm really happy with what I do, with who I do it, with how I do it, with how much time I spend on it, the energy that I put into it. It's all good. I'm really happy.
Oh, when you first started your career, not you're just starting your business, starting your career, did you think that those would be the success metrics that make you happy today? Happy clients, satisfied work?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean that's kind of the goal for anyone who's going into business for themselves on any kind of a level. Certainly, when I first got into the financial services industry, I was working for an insurance company, and that's I mean I don't know where you want to start going back to things, but when I started doing financial planning, sort of the first round, this was sort of always the sort of vague idea in the back of my head as to how I wanted to live my life, but it was a vague idea, and a lot of the metrics that I was basing my concept of success around were about hard numbers and dollar signs.
So then that's a hobby. So where did you start your career then?
Okay. So I used to be an insurance claims adjuster. This was going on 20 years ago now. And it's a tough job. I mean, you only meet someone after something horrible has happened to them. And your job is you're there to help people through it, but you're also there to make sure that the insurance company doesn't spend too much money. So there's always that little bit of a conflict of interest there. And you can never really make people whole. Insurance is there to replace something. So replace a vehicle or replace a home, or in the case of life insurance, to replace something that would have been there if that person hadn't passed away, and that's always an impossible thing to do. So you're always just bringing people slightly below the level of where they were. You can never make the thing not have happened. I cannot unburn the house. I cannot unsewage the basement. And right. And so it started to eat your soul after a while. And so I was having lunch with a friend one day and bitching about my job as one does. And he suggested, well, why not do something else? I had this idea in my head that you get a job and you work there until they give you a gold watch, and then you go away and you knit for a couple of years and then you die. I mean, that's sort of the standard that I was raised on. But yeah, I decided to take him up on it. It was with a company that I'd already been a client of for years. So it was sort of a bit of an easier transition that way. And I started helping people with their money. So at the very least, whenever I meet someone now, and all along the way, we're starting off on level ground. So here's where you're at, here's where we want you to be, how are we going to get you from here to here? And that's my job, is helping people do that.
I love this. Something I want to pick up on what you talked about, because what you're describing, that from the beginning, like that kind of that vague idea of how you want your work life to be. Like in the beginning of your career, you have no idea what to expect.
Oh,
So
heck
you
no.
are drawing on like what previous generations have done, what's been modeled for you, and what you
Yep.
think your work life is going to be. So of course, in the beginning, you're thinking, well, the numbers. How can I make the most
Oh,
money in
yeah.
the amount of time?
Right. Yep.
Because again, it's my knitting days. And I think, in the beginning of your career, you don't realize how long you are going to be alive,
Right.
and
Exactly.
how you spend your time and the work that you welcome in, how that affects
Oh.
your soul. Like it does. The expression I used that when I worked in news. Like there was an epic news year where it was the earthquake in Haiti, the
Mm.
disappearance of Tori Stafford, the 8-year-old girl who was gone missing for months and turned out she was dead the entire time, the BP
Yeah.
oil spill. Like it was just this
Yep.
never-ending onslaught of bad news. And that was my moment of like, this stuff is it's in my soul. It's eating me up
Yes.
inside. I was not put on this planet to peddle human misery. But when I started working in news, I thought, well, this is the way it is. Like, I want to get paid to
Yep.
be a writer. This is how one gets paid to be a writer. Yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of felt the same way too, because I knew that like certainly after a little while in insurance and dealing with claims all the time and dealing with bad things happening to people, you realize that it does have an effect on you. But for a lot of years, I kind of toughed that out and it's like, I'm tough, I'm
Mhm.
strong, I can do this, I can help people, and it's my job to do the difficult things because I can. And you
Mhm.
kind of sacrifice yourself to this ideal of, well, somebody has to do it, and it might as well be me because I'm strong enough to take it.
Mm.
And that's really doing yourself a disservice in the long run because you know what? No, not necessarily. And this is why there's a lot of burnout in both those industries. There's a lot of burnout in media. There's a lot of burnout in insurance. I swear, 90% of the guys, and it was 90% guys that I worked with in insurance, were either divorced or alcoholic or both. And after a while, you look at that and you start thinking, okay, is this what I really want for my life?
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
It's just such a hard space to like. I have experienced burnout. We'll get into your medical history, or your story too, but
Yeah.
the burnout is real, and it really is that feeling of I want something different, but I don't know what that different is. Right.
Yes.
So you're trying to make the situation that you've been given, you're trying to make that work. There's a practical, like in real time reason for that. I need to get paid. Right.
Oh,
I
yeah.
make money. I need to
Girls gotta eat, man.
so, but when you don't
This
know,
body doesn't come from salad. I need
it's just
red
a
meat.
lot of hard work and cheese.
That's right. Amen, sister. Hard work and cheese.
Yeah, but I think that's where for people who are when they're in this space of like I want something different, but I don't know what it is. That's where it is actually. It creates a tension. But
Yes.
what I've learned looking back is just that tension is learning. That tension is teaching you
Yep.
something. Just get curious, because when you try to force the situation that isn't right for you, it
Yep.
it it your body, your soul, your mind has a way of telling you. So let's go then
Yeah.
into what life was like
Okay.
working in the financial industry. Yeah.
So when I started in the financial industry, there were not a lot of women in roles as actual advisors. We were administrators, we were assistants, we were the girl in the office. And
Mhm.
I came in as I want to be an advisor. And the well, not the head office guy, the head guy in the office sat me down basically the first day I was there and said, I don't believe women belong in this business. I'm like, oh, really? Is that how it is? And that's how it was. So I didn't get a lot of support from my immediate supervisors at that time. I mean, I had a couple of great mentors. I don't want to poop on the entire organization, but I had a couple of great mentors in the office. But the overall assistance from head office that a lot of people would get, I didn't really get so much because I wasn't really good at the, hey, let's go play golf and suck up to the boss kind of games. Really not good at that, not my style. Anyway, so I struggled and I worked really, really hard to try to make up for that. Didn't have a huge warm market. I had to go out and find people off the streets and convince them that they wanted to give me their money so I could handle it for them. And it was hard.
Yeah.
Also, midway through my second year of the business, 2008 happened. The market did nothing but go down every single day for about 6 or 7 straight months.
Yes.
And when you're new in the business, it's very demoralizing for you. It's very demoralizing for your clients. And the only way that I knew how to respond to that was to work harder and work more. So I was in my desk 15, 16 hours a day. I was making phone calls. I was doing the things. I was making the appointments and going to the meetings and taking the classes and learning all this stuff. And at one point, my body was just, I had a really sore back all the time. I was
Mhm.
going to the chiropractor like 2, 3, 4 times a week. And it finally caught up with me. One New Year's Eve, back was killing me, went to the chiropractor as per usual. And
Mhm.
he said to me, "I think you need a surgical consult. There's nothing else I can do for you."
Not what you wanna hear from a
When a
health
when a
practitioner.
chiropractor tells you, "I think you need surgery,"
Oh,
oh my god, something is horribly wrong,
yeah.
right? So I go home, I put my feet up, like lie on the floor, put my feet up on the couch and just kind of set my computer up and it's like, okay, I guess I'm going to park here for the day because my back was just still killing me lying on the floor. So by the time my husband got home, it was 6 hours later. I couldn't move. I could not get up off the floor. I was completely frozen. Like everything had just seized up and my body was saying, that's it, you're done.
Yeah.
So call the ambulance, haul me off to Emerge. New Year's Eve in Emerge, quite the experience. There's cops everywhere. There's
Of course.
fights breaking out. You're in a hallway because there's no other room for you. I
Yeah.
found out that Demerol doesn't do squat for me.
Mm.
So we had to wait for the Demerol to wear off so they could give me the morphine.
Oh, no.
Right, all this kind of stuff, right? About 2 in the morning, I finally sent my husband home and like I lay there in the hallway because what else could you do?
Yeah.
They did find me another corner. It wasn't like an official bed, but they moved my gurney up to a corner on another floor, and I was able to get a CAT scan. CAT scan,
Mhm.
yeah, or no, an MRI. Sorry, the
Mhm.
next day, and like an emergency MRI, and it showed I had 2 discs that were pushing out. Not where
Mhm.
they were supposed to be, and they were pushing on the sciatic nerve. So I had
Mm.
intense pain going down my leg, and it was interesting because they showed me the scan,
Yeah.
and I'm looking at this going, I am not a medical professional by any in any way, shape, or form, but that ain't right.
Nope.
You could just see that was not right. So they're like, okay, you need surgery. We've got a neurosurgeon. You're on the list for emergency surgery. Now we just have to make sure that no other emergencies come in that are more emergency than you. So great. So I wait for a day. You can't eat anything. You're drinking little sips of water and you wait and you're on your morphine and whatever. And no, you can't have your surgery today. We're getting bumped till tomorrow. So go have dinner. Well, by the time they do that, there's no dinner to be had. So it was crackers and jello. So I
Mhm.
was on the morphine crackers and jello diet for 4 days until they could get my surgery done. Really excellent weight loss program, although I do not recommend it.
No, no. I
Yeah.
mean, I wanna slow down and take a minute because for
Okay.
anyone who's never experienced like I had sciatic problems back when I was working in news.
Yeah.
Lower back pain is like a pain. I've never had children, so I can't speak to
Yep.
what childbirth is like, but when you have when your discs are pressing down on your lower, like that is your center, that is your nervous system. So the
Yeah.
pain in your lower back is immobilizing. It hurts
Oh,
to breathe when you're in that much pain.
yep. It
And
does.
you
And
were living that way for a while
we
before
figured out
the
yeah,
chiropractor.
we figured out it's probably a good 2 years that I was kind of walking around and kind of starting to tilt to the side because
Yes,
the pain was
yes,
going down my left leg, so I would put my weight on to my right, and that would help it.
yeah.
And by the time I actually ended up getting the surgery, I'd lost like 30% of the muscle tone in my left leg, and it was essentially dead because I was at the very end. I was literally lifting my left leg in and out of the car because I couldn't move it on its own. So I was kind of a mess, but because it had come on so gradually,
Yes,
and apparently I have a high pain tolerance,
yes.
I just kept on keeping on. Because what do
High
you do, right?
high pain tolerance, but also just this dogged persistence, right?
Friggin' stubborn.
You
Yes.
because your focus is on proving that you do actually belong in the financial services
Yes.
space. So
Oh,
that's where your mind is. It's ignoring what your body is trying to tell you. And
absolutely.
I want to spend a lot of time being in
Yeah.
this because I think your
Oh, yeah.
body, it tells you, it is talking to you constantly. But if
Oh,
you're preoccupied with something
just
else,
yeah.
you'll walk sideways and be like, yeah, this is just how I walk now. No big
Yeah,
deal. Like,
it's
you'll,
fine. It's okay. I can make it work. I'll just, prop up my butt, so I need like an extra pillow oh, this ridiculous. When you look back at it, it's like, oh my God, how ridiculous were you?
yeah.
But again, because it comes on so gradually and because you're so hyper focused on, I'm trying to build this business and I'm trying to make some money. I mean, there was one point, so there's always expenses that go along with running a financial services practice. And the expenses come whether you make any money or not. So at some point you go in debt to the company. There
Yeah.
was my personal best was an 8-month period where I did not bring home any money, where I was able to cover my expenses or not. And I basically went in debt to the company and I didn't bring home a paycheck.
Mhm.
You know, so I was highly motivated to
Yeah.
keep working.
Yeah.
And it was a really tough time. But I just remember waking up from that first surgery.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a cue for you. And the pain was gone, and it was literally one of these, "Ah!" It was a moment, okay? And it was wonderful, and I'm thinking, "Oh, this is amazing. This is over. I can go back to work." I had my BlackBerry in the hospital with me, writing emails back and forth to my assistant and to clients, and, like,
Yeah.
in the hospital, I was still working because that was what I did. That was who I was,
So
right? Was a person.
yes. And oh my God, everything you say, I'm like, Millie, we are the same person. So let's go back then to the hospital, right? You
Yep,
just had this surgery.
yep.
We were looking back, the back pain, like so many signs that this situation is not for you, right? Your manager is telling
Yeah.
you you don't
Yep.
belong. There are so many signs in the business, like moving success further and further away. And now you have this literally crippling back pain. You're in
Yep.
the hospital, you just had surgery. You're still not associating this with your with work. So what did you think was going on? Like what were you what was your rationale? What did you
Oh my God. When you put it that way, I feel even dumber because how ridiculous is all this, right? It's just
It's
I
ridiculous
didn't
looking back because
I didn't know what else to.
I've been in that exact same space in
Yeah.
which you don't see what you're doing to
No,
yourself when you're doing it to
you
yourself.
totally
Like,
don't.
it's
You
ridiculous looking back, but in that moment, it makes perfect sense that of course my business
I
needs me. If I'm not there, they fall
Yep.
apart and I fall apart. Like it's just that's the reality you create for yourself.
I didn't know anything different. I did not know any way to respond to the situation other than work harder. Like I was raised
Mhm,
by farmers who came over from Europe after the Second World War. My
mhm.
whole upbringing was about hard physical labor.
Yeah,
And frankly, if you weren't doing hard physical labor, were you even really working? Ah,
no,
you just work in an office. That is not hard.
yeah. Yeah, you
Right? Like that was the attitude.
blood, sweat, and tears. You gotta pay your dues. That language, it's all
Lit-
over the place.
Right? That good old Protestant work ethic.
Yep.
That's what I was raised on. And
Yep.
so I did not have any other way to respond to a difficult situation other than to try to power through it,
Yeah.
until I couldn't. And
Yeah.
I was literally flat on my back because I had no you know
Yeah.
and yet it seems I still didn't learn the lesson because okay, so you have the surgery, you wake up, they send you home in a couple of days. You have to be helped in and out of the shower. I wasn't allowed to make tea because I was so weak. I kept breaking mugs. Like I was helpless, and I did not like it.
Mm.
Okay, I did not deal with that well at all. So my response was, I got to get better as fast as I can, so I can go back to work,
Mm.
and I did.
Mhm.
So at the time, I was working 2 jobs actually. So I was working 16 hours a day at my business, and then I was also working at a radio station locally, doing like night shifts and weekend shifts and that kind of thing. And
So
I know.
the times when people are resting, you're in a radio station.
But
No,
that was fun. That was the fun job, right? So it didn't count as work.
I hear you. I hear
Right? So when I got my surgery in early January, and then another announcer at the station had gone off on sick leave. He was sick, and so they asked me, "Well, can you take over the midday show for a week or a couple of weeks?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not doing anything. I can do that. Sure, I'll do that." So I went to work. Basically, what was it? A 10 to 2 shift. So I
Okay.
went in and you start around 9, you could do your show prep, you do the 10 to 2 shift, you do your wrap up, you're home by 3. So, a nice light schedule. No big deal if you're recovering from surgery, you can do that. So I did that, and then, I think it was maybe 4 weeks after the actual surgery, I officially came back to work at my financial services practice,
Mm.
um, and it was right back into the same scheduling and the same kind of work that I was doing prior to that, and so I figured, "Okay, it's over, I'm good, it's fine." And then I started to feel these little twinges in my back again,
Mm.
and by April,
How much time were you supposed to recuperate after you had the first surgery?
6 to 8 weeks.
Okay, and you went back to work when?
2. If you count going back to the radio station, it would be 2 weeks,
Okay. Yeah,
which we probably should count.
just didn't wanna gloss over that detail.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, by April, I was in as much pain as I was prior to the flipping surgery, and it was so demoralizing and so upsetting, and it was just, I was emotionally and mentally a wreck because went through all this, and here I am, I'm right back where I started.
Yeah.
So I did end up getting I got, and this, I had to get sneaky.
Mhm.
I had to get a hold of the neurosurgeon who did the surgery, and I ended up sending his office a fax because they weren't accepting new referrals at that time. So I sent him a fax. It was like this 2-page letter of, and I can still remember some of the wording because I worked on this for a long time. This had to be perfectly crafted in order to get this guy's attention. You really helped me the first time, but I think you need your help again. Here's what's going on. Can we talk? Right. So yeah, he reached out. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful doctor. And he reached out. He arranged for me to get another MRI. Got the MRI. It looked almost exactly the same as the first one.
Mm.
And it
Mm.
was just, what the hell? What have I gone through? Like, what are we doing here? So either either he didn't take off enough the first time that he scraped away at the disc.
Sure,
So we
sure,
blame.
that's possible.
Sure.
Sure.
It's theoretically
We'll
possible.
entertain that possibility.
Or it's just one of those 5% of surgeries that goes wrong,
Sure, that's
or
possible.
it's possible, or I went back to work too early and I
Ding, ding, ding,
buggered
ding, ding.
myself up again.
I want it. My heart goes out to the doctors because I do this too. They give us
Right?
advice. It is on us to follow the advice and just
Yep.
the
Yeah.
patience that they have. In the back of their mind, they're like, "Yeah, I told you this would happen. Like, I told you so." But they can't just say, "I
I
told
don't
you."
well,
Like,
okay, I don't actually remember them telling me that if you go back to work right away, this is gonna happen again. They
no,
didn't they
but they
never
should
I'm
progress.
pretty sure they never actually said that, but maybe it was assumed that I wouldn't be so stupid as to go back to work in 2 weeks when they told me to stay off for 6.
There was
Perhaps, I
I
don't
know
know.
I'm teasing you with this now, but there is a part of your story that I tweaked to, and it was that feeling of I can't even make tea for myself.
Yeah, and I did not like that at all. To be and my husband was a
Absolutely.
wonderful guy. He took a really good care of me, but the
Yeah.
idea of not being able to take care of myself, ooh,
Yes.
that did not sit well with me at all,
Yeah.
you know?
Let's talk more about that because I think asking for help is the most powerful thing that you can do as a grown human, no matter who you
Yeah,
are in life. Asking for help is the most powerful thing you can do because it's the hardest thing to do. Needing
very
help
hard.
is very
Yes,
vulnerable. Yeah.
yes.
Especially when you
Admitting that you need help.
yeah, especially when you have this image of I am a powerful woman in finance and I'm here to prove everyone else wrong. To then need help, like caring for your you're almost like a newborn baby that needs to be fed,
Oh,
clothed, and
weak as
taken.
a kitten.
Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
real
it's a blow to the ego.
yeah,
It's a blow to all of this stuff that you build up in your mind about I'm a strong, capable human being, and you that's something that builds up over time. you don't come out of the womb feeling like a strong, capable human. Heck, I'm almost 55 years old, and there's some days I don't feel like a grown up, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Yeah,
any feeling of competence or of strength is hard won, and something that you cherish, I guess, is
yeah,
probably one way to put it.
yeah,
And then to have that all taken away from you is just it's really demoralizing, I think. And you feel like you've failed. You
yeah,
feel like you've failed at being a human being,
yeah,
you know? And
yeah.
it's yeah, and
And
it
then
was
to
hard.
have and then to have that feeling followed by, "Well, now I'm just back in the same situation. The discs have slipped out of position again."
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so what ended up happening was I got rebooked for the sort of next level. So the first surgery, the scar was about like this big. And
Mhm.
I got a second surgery in August of that year, which the scar is now this big, which was a good excuse to get a tattoo. But
Yes.
that's whatever.
So yeah, so for those listening, the new scar is, like, twice as big
It's
as
about 3 inches long as opposed to an inch and a half, right? That terribly disfiguring. I absolutely had to cover it up with a picture of a palm tree, but
Of
whatever.
course.
Of course, right?
Why the palm tree? Sorry, there's something there. Why that image for your tattoo?
You know what? Because we have been in the habit of going away once every winter, just for a week, just sit on it, doing very little, sitting on a
Mhm.
beach, staring at the ocean, and just completely. There's something about doing that, just sitting by the water and listening to the waves, that basically cleanses your mind and your brain and your soul.
Yeah.
And once you do that, it becomes addictive, and it becomes something that you really, really look forward to, especially when you live where I live. I'm up in Thunder Bay. Winters are long up here. And so by March, you're reconsidering all your life choices, one of them being, why do I live here?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
the idea of a winter getaway is just something that you start to cling to a little bit around the middle of January. And
Yeah.
then you go in March, and then you come back, and it's like, okay, spring is happening. We can
Mm.
survive another year. So
Yeah.
that, I guess that's why the palm tree, but yeah, it
Well,
speaks to me that way.
and what I'm hearing too is that imagery of just that mental cleansing, the cleansing of the
Yeah.
soul, the cleansing of your mind. You're clearing the thoughts and the beliefs and the judgments that you're building to that are creating this reality that
Yep.
is like that is harming you. So that
Yeah.
to me, because at the beginning of the conversation, of course, was that tension of just, deep inside what you want your life to look like. You don't
Yes.
know how to create it. And it's
Yes.
to
It's
figure
always the
it out.
how. It's the how. It's that whole manifesting thing. Like that's where the whole manifestation concept falls
Yeah.
apart. It's
Yeah.
just believe it and it will be, just believe it and it will come to you, and just believe hard enough and manifest it and think it up and dream. And how?
Well,
How is this supposed to happen?
I know. I mean, because like the sexy and romantic piece is the dreaming and the imagining.
Oh
You
yeah.
still have to do the things. You still have to
You
take
still got.
action. So this is where we are at in the point of your story. So you're in this high pressure job, you're in this high pressure situation, and because
Yep.
you are determined, you are focused, and you're talented, you're still trying to make this work, and that pressure is literally like collapsing your back, putting it at a joint.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's where I think
Exactly.
is the palm tree and choosing that and connecting to
Mhm.
that imagery of I need that knowing that you need that cleansing. And this was a
Yeah.
way of a reminder, the tattoo on your back. This is a reminder that this is actually important. They
Yeah.
happen once a year, but no, maybe they should happen all the time. So in this situation though, so of course, like we're only talking about the first pivot of your career.
Oh yeah. This is just
You
mark one.
you ultimately did leave the situation, so walk me through how that journey went.
Okay, so as you can imagine, this whole medical saga took many months, and I was basically on morphine for an entire calendar year.
Mm,
That's not really conducive to building a business, and I don't recommend it.
yes.
So I was struggling. I was in debt to the company. I wasn't getting paid on a regular basis. It was really, really hard. We refinanced the house. I
Mm,
mean, again, my husband is a flippin' angel to put up with all that, but he did, and because he believed in me more than I did, which
mm,
is just getting me overclamped. But in any case, so struggling. And one day I open up LinkedIn, and there's a message from a recruiter saying, "Would you like a job at a bank?" I'm like, oh no, I am in business for myself. I am working hard. I just need to work a little bit harder and it'll be fine. But I took the interview because I never and one policy I made very early on was that I never turned down an opportunity to have a conversation with someone new, because you
Mm,
never know where that's gonna lead. And
absolutely.
so that's been a part of my policies for years and years and years. So took the interview, had the conversation, and they're like, "Well, we're really looking for someone who's got your qualifications, and, we've got a branch that needs to have a financial planner in it, and we're gonna give you this much in salary, and you're going to be able to make, commissions on top of that, so blah, 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 blah." Basically, what it came down to is that they would pay me every 2 weeks.
Dream. That's the dream.
Right? Right, whether I deserved it or not, I was gonna get a paycheck.
Yeah.
And so I took a job. Like, I took the job because I was beaten down, I was exhausted,
Yes.
and I needed to lick my wounds for a while.
Yeah.
So I took the job. The first day I walked into the branch manager sat me down and said, "I didn't want you here. I wanted someone who was gonna be able to do more mortgages and things for me. I don't think we need a financial planner in this branch." So
Again,
fine.
again, that situation.
Again, right? So I don't know, like,
Yeah.
I don't know why it's just my stubborn or spite or what. Is the universe telling me I shouldn't be in this business? Maybe it was, but I kept forging ahead anyway. I earned her respect in the end, and
Mm,
I worked my ass off, and I did take better physical care of myself because I had no flipping choice at that point.
yeah.
Um, and the whole getting paid every 2 weeks thing did
Yes.
take an enormous amount of pressure off of
Yes.
me.
And
So
I'm gonna take some time to be in that space for a while too, because because you are a certified financial planner,
yeah.
and a business owner, like business owner to business owner. Like I spent the first part of my career earning a biweekly paycheck. So I thought I'm really, really good at money. I'm really good at managing a steady income. But being a
Well,
business
sure.
owner where money comes in when it comes in, like that was a whole new learning curve. So
Absolutely.
I don't think we can really we can't underestimate the power of consistent income, right? That
Oh,
consistency of income
yes.
settles so much stress for business owners. And I think there are a lot of business owners that they get to that point where it's like, how much more can I leverage? How much more can I keep this dream alive? And if
Mhm.
business is feeling forced, the business is feeling heavy. I think more entrepreneurs need to normalize sometimes taking a job, like
Yeah.
sometimes just taking like a part-time job or a short-term
Just
contract, just something to take that pressure off
yeah.
because you need that time, that space.
You gotta eat,
Yeah.
and to let your pride get in the way of it again, it's demoralizing and you feel like you failed,
Mhm.
right? But the fact is I would not have been approached by the bank if they weren't impressed with what they saw on my LinkedIn, what I was doing, the things I was posting, the work I was doing, the
Yeah.
qualifications that I had earned, the certifications and blah 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 blah, all those kind of things got me that job. I didn't go looking for them, they came looking for me.
Mm.
Uh, right? And so
Mhm.
that's kind of a huge compliment, which is nice.
Yes.
And yeah, and so I took the job and licked my wounds for a few years, and I thought to myself, "Okay, I can do this. I can be a small cog in the big corporate machine." It doesn't get much bigger corporate than a bank in
Like, no.
Canada, right?
No.
It is a corporation writ
Yes.
large, and you are a very, very, very small cog.
Yes.
And so I put up with, well, we have to go to a morning huddle every morning and we have to it wasn't quite as bad as, sing a little song and do a little dance,
Yes.
but it was very much this is what corporate wants you to do and here is your blah 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 and here is your the thing that really killed me was the scorecard. So in the bank, everybody had a scorecard of metrics that they were measured on to
Yes.
tell whether or not they were doing their jobs. And my metrics consisted of 6 or 8 depending on it changed every year, priorities.
Mm.
You cannot have half a dozen priorities at once. You cannot be prioritizing financial planning and mutual fund sales and mortgage conversations. And by the way, did you offer this person a credit card? Those
Mhm.
are not priorities, and then often they're in direct conflict with each other.
Yeah.
So that lack of freedom and
Mhm.
that sort of micromanaging of how I did things and who I talked to,
Yeah.
that started to eat at my soul again too. It turns out I am not a team player. And I am not a good little corporate soldier, but I thought to myself, I can do this. I can suck it up. I can work here for 20 years. I'll get my pension. I'll
Mhm.
just kind of suck it up and deal because it was still they still paid me every 2 weeks,
Yeah.
right?
And I think, comparing the first two work experiences, like we started off the conversation, you are currently running your business the way you want it to, right? The feeling you
100%.
had of how you want it to work, it's
Yeah.
realized. Sometimes
Yes.
we only get to that point of knowing what that thing is when we're in the spaces where they're not the right thing.
I did find myself certainly after the first couple of years, like for the first year is just absorbing the way the bank does things and getting your head around the software and getting yourself sort of onboarded and
Mhm.
functional, right? That takes a good year at the level that I was at. Like I was at the same level as a branch manager, just I didn't have direct reports.
Mhm.
And so after you kind of get your feet on the ground a bit and get a solid idea of what your life is going to look like, then after 2 or 3 years of that, you start getting bored
Mhm. Mhm.
and you start trying to think of different ways to do things and what else can you do? And you start taking on outside projects. And so I started doing a lot more volunteer work than before and
Yeah.
going to a lot of networking meetings and a lot of within the corporate structure as much as I could, conferences and professional associations and trying to get myself to what end because it wasn't going to affect my paycheck one way or the other. But I was just trying to do something different, something more because the
Mhm.
job itself was starting to get boring.
Boredom and comfort, I think they're almost the opposite end of this, or the other side of the coin. Like,
Yeah.
whereas your first experience was like high stress, surgery, ignoring
Yeah.
doctor's
Never
advice.
bored.
No, but boring and complacency also isn't the answer because you become comfortable. And I think when you allow yourself to get comfortable and get bored, then it gets really hard to see, well, what is this next thing?
I think boredom is good if it gives you the impetus to actually do something different.
Yeah.
Boredom is bad when you just sink into yourself and get miserable because
Yeah.
boredom can lead to depression
Yes.
pretty
Yeah.
quickly too. You just keep sliding down, and the next thing you know, you're that bitter old woman in the coffee room at work, and you've been there for 30 years, and you should have retired years ago, but you can't afford to. So therefore, you just stick around, and you're miserable all the time, and you keep telling the younger people how life was better in the old days, and you're just bitter. And I didn't know. I
Mhm.
didn't want to become that. I worked
Yeah.
with plenty of those. I don't know how
Bore
many of those there are on TV, but there's a lot of them in banking.
We're in the boring bank. So
We're at the bank. I'm
what
bored. Okay.
what pushed you out of then this boredom?
I wasn't so much a push as a pull, actually.
Mm, okay.
So I was contacted by another advisor at my old company, and he wanted to talk to me. It's like, yeah, sure. I never turned down an opportunity to have a conversation. So we had coffee, and he's like, I want to retire in a couple of years, and I want someone to take over my book that I know I can trust and that they are going to be good to the clients. And I've been kind of watching you, and I think you'd be great. Would you like to come back and work with me as my business partner? And it was a very kind of a scare, and it's not like I hadn't had opportunities like that before that, because in the financial services industry, there's not there can be a lot of turnover in some areas,
Mhm.
and so like Edward Jones was calling me every 6 months, and like there's companies, Raymond James, and all these guys were checking in on a fairly regular basis, and
Mhm.
I don't know if I was just bored enough or if it was the fact that it was the old company that I was with before, and therefore the devil
Mm.
um, but yeah, I decided to, let's do this. Let's take this chance. And he was going to pay me a salary at least for the first year, and then we would look at how things are going from there. So it was a huge opportunity. He had a
Mhm.
huge book. He had a lot of opportunity in there because it was such a big book. There were a lot of clients that he wasn't necessarily able to meet with as much as you would like to,
Yeah.
and so bringing me on would allow me to, get to know these clients, get them all up to speed and help them out. And then at some point, we switch roles. He becomes the associate, I become the advisor, and then he gets to go off into the sunset, and I take things over and carry on.
Mm,
So,
yeah.
and I would get back my autonomy. I
Yes.
would get back the freedom to run my own schedule. There would be no more morning huddles. I
Yes.
did not realize how much I valued my day-to-day freedom
Yeah.
until I gave it up to go to the bank and then got it back.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that fact that I got that back and was able to,
Mhm.
I'm going for lunch because I feel like going for lunch right now. Like, it's just little things,
Yeah.
but
What I love
yeah.
about this, especially you going back to the same firm that you started with, you're not the same person though at this point
No.
in the story. You've learned things, right?
Yep.
That vague idea of how you want your life to be, how you want your work life to look like, is
Yep.
becoming clearer. You've learned it through hardship. Like you've learned it through multiple surgeries. You've learned it
Mhm.
through, awkward corporate culture. Something to learning like what I think what your superpower is it's the palm tree, right? You
Mhm.
are listening to yourself. Sometimes your body has to scream at you to get you to pay
Yeah.
attention, but you're learning like no there's still something, there's still this intangible thing and
Mhm.
this curiosity that you'll always take a phone call with someone because you never know
Yeah.
where that's going to lead. Curiosity, I've been hearing that throughout your story, is a superpower for business owners. Just getting curious, just have a conversation with someone and see where it goes. It might not go anywhere for like another year, but just
Forever. Yeah.
conversation with someone and see what lands. So was this the magical situation or was there some resistance here too?
Well, well, luckily the original head guy was gone by this point, and the attitude in the industry, like over the course of my career, the attitude in the industry towards women has changed a lot. Is there still work that needs to be done? Yes. Are there still a bunch of old white guys in suits that need to shuffle off into the sunset before things are, in a place where we feel really that we're valued the same? Yeah, maybe a few, but in general, it's gotten a lot better for
Yeah.
women in my industry. So that wasn't necessarily the problem.
Mm.
Well, it turns out now, and see, I've got to be very careful about how I phrase this because I don't
Yeah.
want to get sued.
Yes.
But it turns out that the situation was misrepresented,
Okay.
that there were other players involved that I was not aware of,
Hmm.
and that the reasoning for bringing me in was not so much to bring me in, but it was to force someone else to pull up their socks,
Mm. Mhm.
right? So the um, the long and the short of it, I don't know if I can long and short it too much, but it was hard. It was miserable. I did not have a good working relationship with
Yeah.
the I had a great working relationship with the original advisor who brought me on. Like, we were, best buddies. We had coffee all the time. But his secretary wouldn't, respond to my emails.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get any work done with the admin staff that I was supposed to be here. No, 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 I can't do that. You got to do it yourself.
Yeah.
So I wasn't, I was being blocked from the work that I was told that I would be doing.
Yes.
And expectations were started to be communicated to me that had not been communicated to me prior to my leaving the bank.
Mm.
So this was, and I was prepared. I was prepared to just power this out. Just keep my
Yeah.
head down. Just keep working. Just keep doing good work, and somehow it would all work out. Well, then COVID happened. We're all at home, right? And
Mm.
we're all trying to figure things out, and we're all trying to transition to being online. I do have to give the industry credit, though. It was kind of funny because prior to COVID, it was all about, well, we'd like to be able to work virtually, and we'd like to be able to do things more online because it's the wave of the future and remote clients and all that kind of thing. But it was really difficult to make anything actually happen. And there were certain areas of the industry, specifically insurance companies, that were very insistent on, I want to have a wet signature on
Yeah.
a piece of paper for this thing to count, right?
Yeah.
Within 2 weeks after the first lockdown, DocuSign's a thing and we're good to go and everything is virtual, rah. And so I was trying to kind of pivot myself and put myself in that position of being as virtual as possible because I could see that this is something that would work for me,
Mhm.
especially working from home. Because it turns out I really like working from home.
Mm.
I
There's a
this I
there's a pivotal thing that you just said. I could see how this works for me,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
I think, looking back to, those early days of the pandemic, it was traumatic. Like we were
Oh,
not living our best lives. But I think you and I had a similar experience where it's like, if my entire life can be completely turned upside down
mhm.
because it's beyond my control, then that means my day can be whatever I want it to be.
Right?
The thing, especially working in television, like us figuring out
Yes.
how to make TV from home, that was a huge learning curve. And
Oh,
throughout that was,
massive.
yeah, like remote work was never on my radar working in
No.
television because I'm like, well, no, I
Oh,
have
no,
to.
you go to the studio because that's where the gear is. You have to. Like, what choice do you have?
And the first day where I got through my to-do list from home without being interrupted, without being pulled into a million meetings and answering, like,
Oh.
I got my regular to-do list was done in like 2 hours. I'm like, "How was I getting paid like full-time hours to do this stuff?" But
I
it was just
know.
a realization that my what worked for me and what I knew what was expected, the things I should do, what my life
Mhm.
should look like is completely irrelevant. It's I can make it whatever I want it to be,
Yes.
which is
Yeah.
like it took a global pandemic, I think, for a lot of us to have that realization of, well, no, life can be anything. We can
Yeah.
do things differently. This
100%.
is yeah.
Well, I mean, I'd been toying with the idea of working virtually for a while because I'd heard of some advisors in the States that were doing it.
Yeah.
But it was only just a whimsy because the infrastructure just wasn't there to support it.
Yeah.
COVID put that infrastructure in place.
Yeah.
And so now all kinds of things became possible.
Yeah.
So during the pandemic, we're all at home. The business relationship was just it was not going any better because we weren't in the office. And so eventually, we kind of had a little split, and I took the clients that I'd brought in with me, and he sold me some more. And I went off and took a little chunk, and I've got my own tiny little book now.
Mm,
It's enough to pay the expenses and bring home a little bit of a paycheck for me.
mm,
So that's what happened in 2020. So I ended up starting over again.
mhm.
Um, and building up relationships with people as the consultant, not quite from scratch, thankfully. So at least I had that little bit of a base to work from where I'm not completely um, running from nothing.
Yeah.
But still, right?
What
And
what
then
what
you're
I'm hearing though in this final pivot though is it's an active choice, right?
yes,
Every other opportunity has come to you. It's been presented to you and you've tried to figure it out. In this final pivot, you have this vague idea that we talked about at the beginning,
hmm
how you want to work. You're now in the situation where it's like, this is the thing. This is
yeah,
this is what I want to figure out.
yeah,
And thank you. Let's figure out how to, like, it's just there's everything that you've experienced and learned along the way has brought you to this point where this intangible, this unidentifiable thing is now you got it. I've got the clarity. This it's like the coconut coming from the palm tree hitting you on the head. This is what I need to do. Thank you so much.
yeah.
What is it then about how you're doing work now that feels aligned? That feels like what you're meant to be doing right now?
Well, I think part of the benefit of having to start over again so many times. I
Yeah.
mean, in some ways, I haven't been in this business 20 years. I've been in this business 5 years, 4 times. Do the math, right?
Interesting. Yeah.
Right? So I know what it is to survive. God knows I am a survivor. And that's what the first 5 years in this business are. It's just about surviving. And
Yeah.
so I've had to do that over and over and over again. Now I'm finally at a point where I can look at success
Mhm.
as opposed to surviving, right?
Mm.
I've got I've got steady income coming in. Like I've got a base that is paying me on a regular basis. There's some of the debt I had to take on in order to take these clients with me. That will be rolling off by the end of this year. So I'm going
Yeah.
to have even more cash to work with, which is lovely. Um, but yeah, because I've had to start over so many times, I've managed to skip some of the mistakes that I made
Yes.
prior,
Yeah.
right? So I've learned to not get, well, I don't know if I've learned not to get distracted by shiny objects because that's still a thing for me. I still have to kind of keep an eye out for that. It's like, ooh, marketing program, ooh, social media, ooh, webinars, ooh,
Right.
seminars, ooh.
Those shiny things are part of it. Like, I wanna
There
ask,
are.
you said that you finally are getting steady income. Does
Yeah,
the steady income that you are generating feel different from the steady income from the bank?
it does. Yes, you feel
Mhm.
like you earn a little bit more, and because it's somewhat steady. So like there's a very raw base amount, but it's very small.
Yeah.
And so my checks are I call it big check, little check. So
Yeah.
there is sort of the big check is whatever I've made in that first 2 weeks of the month, plus the guaranteed management fees, and
Yeah.
then little check. Or it can be really, really big check depending on what's gone on the rest of the month.
Yes.
So I never really know. Like it's
Yeah.
every pay stub is a new adventure.
Yeah.
I never really know until I go in and look at it. It's like, oh, what did I make this week? Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Right. Because and there's such a long time frame with a lot of things too. So if I start working with someone, so if you and I were working together and I was going to sign you up for an insurance policy, we could start it today. I would start doing the quotes. We would do the application maybe sometime next week. You'd hear from the insurance company about a week or two after that. Then you'd do the medicals whenever your schedule worked for you. Then it's got to go to under blah, blah, blah. It could be 2 months
Mhm.
ish
Mhm.
before the policy gets settled. And then
Yeah.
it's probably another 2 weeks after that when I get paid.
Yeah.
So by the time you get paid for something, you've forgotten what it
Yeah.
was that you did.
Yeah.
So that it makes it very hard to predict what's going on. So it's a bit of an adventure that way. But that's kind of the interesting part of it, I guess.
Mhm.
And the yeah, it's just I feel so much more in control of my
Yeah.
life now
Yeah.
because I am,
Yeah.
you know?
And I think that's key, like feeling control, feeling autonomy, and just feeling like this is in fact how I want to run my business.
Yeah.
That feeling is what then drives you to do the daily actions. Like in business, there are daily actions that you do that don't
Yep.
pay off immediately,
No.
especially when it comes to marketing and media. Like I'm like, oh, yeah, the work we're doing is going to pay off at some point. I can't guarantee you when. But it is about, but in order to then do those daily actions that ultimately
Mhm.
pay off, you do have to be absolutely in love with the idea and know
Yep.
what that idea is. You need that clarity. And I think that's what I'm hearing your journey was just like trying a bunch of things that are in the same world, but aren't the thing. And then
Yeah.
once the thing landed in your lap, you're like, this is it. I'm going to figure this out now.
Yeah, yeah. I
Mm.
think I've been in a phase of constantly figuring things out forever. I don't know that, and I don't know that that ever ends. One of the thing, and we talked about this earlier about getting comfortable.
Mm.
I've worked with quite a few coaches over the years,
Mm.
and there's one specific coach in the States. He's works specifically with financial advisors, and one of his mantras, I guess, is that get uncomfortable.
Mm.
You've got to do the uncomfortable thing. So yeah, if I sit at my desk here and I haven't done something that gives me the I guess I have to do that, but you kind of make yourself do it anyway, and you're glad that you did it. It's kind of like going to the gym, right? You don't necessarily feel like going to the gym every time you do, but you're
Yes.
really glad that you made yourself do the thing.
Yeah.
So that you sent that email, that you made that call, or that you reached out to that person that you've been kind of waffling on because I don't know how they're going to react and blah blah blah. And
Mhm.
again, a lot of us get in our own heads about that too, because no one else is thinking of us as often as we are thinking of us. So really, if you're calling someone or you're reaching out to someone twice in 6 months, it might feel like a lot to you, but
They
it
have no.
probably doesn't to them,
No, no.
you know?
We can have a
Yeah.
whole other conversation around
Mm.
just discomfort of entrepreneurship. So, I
Oh
mean,
God, yeah.
I identify so much with what your story, and I hope people who are listening to do as well. So, what would you say is the biggest when you look back at your
Oh.
journey, if you could summarize? the big lesson, the big takeaway?
Mm, you have to take care of yourself.
Absolutely.
No one else is going to do as good a job of that as you are.
Yeah.
You know, in a lot of cases, you can't rely on other people. And even when there are people that are around you that you can rely on, you need to be able to rely on yourself
Mhm.
as well as, not in lieu of. I mean, yes, absolutely. Ask for help and accept help and hire help and contract out things to help you and do all those kind of things. But ultimately, the buck stops with you.
Mhm.
And if you don't take care of you, the buck is going to roll right over you.
Mm.
And yeah, so like, and I'm talking physically take care of yourself,
Yeah.
emotionally taking care of yourself, mentally taking care of yourself, financially taking care of yourself. You know, like even through all of this, we still put money away. We're able to save in our RSPs because that was a priority for us.
Mhm.
And, you know, even when I wasn't getting paid by the company, we were still making things work as best we could on the backside of things.
Yeah.
That's why I had other jobs, right?
Yeah.
You know, and now we're in a position where it's like, okay, we're starting to see the fruits of that labor now,
Mm.
and that's one less thing to worry about. But
Mhm.
it's you have to make yourself the center of your universe.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds selfish, and that's a kind of a thing that certainly as women in this society, we've been conditioned that you should always be worrying about other people. And yes, absolutely, I am dedicated to serving my clients the best I can. I want to do the best job that I can for them. I want them to do well. I want their money is a priority for me, but
Mhm.
it's not the only priority. And
Mhm.
I cannot allow other people's priorities to supersede me taking care of myself. And that
Yes.
was a hard lesson to learn, and it took me
Yeah.
many years to learn it. And if that's something that somebody else can pick up on,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, I mean, there's a reason why when you're in an airplane, they tell you to put your mask on first because it's
Yes.
not instinctual. Like I don't think it's instinctual for us to take care of ourselves first, but when you do that, you're able to then show up for your clients. You're able to show up
100%.
full self to your clients. And I think, that lovely trifecta of how you care for yourself, that echoes what the palm tree represented, right? Just that mental clarity, that physical clarity, that just we got to calm stuff down a little bit and just center you. So now I feel like that experience isn't now isolated to the once a year vacation.
No.
It's like this is how you live your life right now. Millie, I thank you so much for sharing your story. I mean, it's yeah, you've been pivoting and pirouetting your entire career, but I think so much. I identified so much with it and just the learnings along the way. I think this was such a powerful conversation. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I've loved laying this all out with you, and you've given me some different ways of looking at it that I hadn't before. So I think that's wonderful. I've gotten so much out of this. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks.